and all of a sudden you hear this loud boom and the crash of wood. In 1974, it was my senior year of high school, and I thought I was car crazy. I had my first car was an Austin Healey Sprite. My second car was a Morris Minor convertible. I wanted a job in the car business. I thought, what better place to go than to British Motor Cars of Seattle? So I went down to BMC, and I was all dressed up in my best gray suit from prom. Went in and I asked to apply for a job, and they took me into the general manager's office. And he said, "Well, what do you want to do?" I said, "Well, I don't have any experience." So he says, "Well, I've got a open position for a lot boy." And I go, "Okay, all right, sure." He says, "But the thing is, you need to start on Monday." This was a Friday morning. And I go, "I can do that." Now, I hadn't finished high school at this point in time. I think it was March or April of that year, and I still had to go through several more months before the finishing. So I went home. I told my parents over the weekend, and they said okay, but I needed to finish high school, so I enrolled in night school to do that. So I started there in high school and as a lot boy. Eventually became a service advisor. And so I was a service advisor for many years there until I went back to school. This one time, one of the salesmen went out in this brand new Rolls Royce, Silver Shadow. And he took a customer out for a test drive and came back. And just as the car's turning the corner right in front of the dealership, the car just shuts down, just dies completely and rolls to the curb. Nothing works on the car whatsoever. Customer gets out, salesman goes in, grabs us. We all go out there. We're all looking at it. We're all checking it. We're trying to jump the car. It won't jump. Nothing works on the car. What are you going to do? You're right there in front of the dealership. The driveway into the dealership's probably 30, 40 feet away. So we grab a bunch of guys, the mechanics, and there's 5, 6, or 7 of us. Because the car weighs about 4,700 pounds. We sit there and we all look at each other and we say, okay, well, who's going to steer it? Well, we had one technician, he was from the UK, Jim, and he was all maybe 5'4" and 135 pounds soaking wet. And so we say, "Jim, you get in and drive it." Okay, plus he was also a Rolls Royce mechanic, so fine. So we all start pushing, and it's a slight 1% grade uphill and into the parking lot. And he's reefing on this huge machine, trying to turn the corner. And then you got to turn right into the dealership and then left up along the parking lot. And over here was this long cinder brick wall that separated the front of the dealership to the service department, and it went outside and went halfway down, so you'd hide all the service cars that were lined up there because you didn't want to show all the cars that were broken. So we pushed it all the way down there, and it's kind of still in a little bit of an uphill grade, but then it gets up to the point where you turn the corner on the hill and it flattens out. And now you're turning a little more right, and Jim's reefing on it, and you're headed towards the shop. But then all of a sudden, just before they get to the shop, it drops probably 2-3% down and then into the shop. So we get to the fulcrum point where now all of a sudden the momentum of the car is starting to take over and we don't have to push anymore. And so we all kind of go, "Okay, Jim, it's yours." And he goes in, and now his work bay or stall was just right off to the right of this. And it was a large room, probably you could fit 3, maybe 4 cars side by side across. And in front of that were these large workbenches, all made of huge 4x4 wood benches. And then they had their toolboxes, their snap-on toolboxes on either sides of them and that type of thing. That's where Jim was headed, was to his stall. So he's going down this hill, and we all kind of let go and see the car rolling, and we're watching it roll, and it's turning right. You're outside in the sunshine, you're looking in this dark building, and all of a sudden the car turns, and all of a sudden you hear this loud boom and the crash of wood, and all these tools are flying off the wall and everything else. And we're all look at each other. We run down there, and there's the Rolls Royce, had gone right through the workbench, right through the cinder brick wall, and into the used car showroom floor. And we're all just aghast at what happened here. And Jim, are you okay? You okay? Yeah, I'm fine. And what happened? He says, there were no brakes, nothing. I pushed the pedal, nothing worked. Well, in production in that year, they had made a production change, and somehow they had changed the brake system to work with the electrical system. And when there was no electrics, there were no brakes. Well, that was Technical Bulletin BS 1844 that you were all supposed to memorize, that nobody ever did. And of course, he went right through the wall and everything else. And we're just looking at this and we're, oh man. So then the argument between Rolls-Royce and the dealership owner became a big deal. I think the owner, he ended up paying for it all. And I remember seeing that Rolls-Royce grill on the back of his desk in the corner, just sitting there as a memento to that day when Jim went through the wall. It wasn't his fault. Nobody blamed him, but it was just brand new Rolls right through the wall. This is in the early 70s, and this was a time when Rolls-Royce was trying to figure out exactly what the U.S. market was. At that time, that Rolls-Royce that went through the brick wall had an astounding price. I think the base price was $19,460, and that was all the money in the world for that. I think they probably only sold 4 or 5 at the most at that point in time. I remember the actor Danny Kaye, although it wasn't him, he had a company called Danny Kaye Promotions, and that was based in Seattle. And his manager at that point in time drove a new Rolls Royce, and it was amazing. It was like, you got to remember, I was 18, 19, and this guy had come in. He was probably 31, 32, 33. And he was the first guy I ever saw in a full-length mink coat get out of a car. And I was just like, who is this? So yeah, that's after the car went through the wall, obviously it needed to be repaired. And they sent it up to the body shop that the dealership used. And I think that the owner at the point in time, he had a lot of friends and a lot of connections, and somehow the car, after it got fixed, disappeared. I think it went to California and eventually got sold, and nobody was ever the wiser.
Once again, I want to thank Bridgestone for their support of VINwiki this month, for their support of the channel, and all they're going to do with us throughout the year. We're going to test some tires, use some tires, and have them talk about what the tire business is like from their perspective and all the great things that Bridgestone is doing as a brand, including becoming an OEM offering on cars like Porsches, Lamborghinis, and things like that in the past couple of years. And so I know that you're going to love that, but I know that you'll also love their tires. And so whether you go to Tire Rack and order a set of Bridgestones for your car, or also check them out at the link in the description below, check out the Potenza range of tires for road cars, supercars, sports cars, hypercars. They are amazing, and I know they'll treat you well. Have a great day.